Atlanta Business League is the South's oldest and most influential minority business development and advocacy organization. Since its inception in 1933, the ABL has earned the support and respect of business and civic leadership for creating an environment that affords increased communications and partnering opportunities for and between minority and majority businesses. While our history is important, today we must focus on our future. The COVID-19 pandemic is ever-changing and is having a devastating effect on Metro Atlanta and surrounding communities. The health, safety, peace of mind, and sustainability of our members, as well as our community, are paramount to the Atlanta Business League. With that as a priority, the ABL is hosting Zoom webinars to update our members on issues, opportunities, and stimuli that could impact their ability to stay in business and survive. Welcome to the ABL Weekly COVID-19 Issues and Opportunities series.
Good afternoon. I'm LEONA BARR-DAVENPORT, President and CEO of the Atlanta Business League. Welcome to today's Issues and Opportunities series with the Atlanta Business League. We have two wonderful speakers today, and I would describe both of them as committed, passionate leaders who are doing what they love to do. Our first speaker will be Commissioner Natalie Hall, and I will read one statement about her. I'll introduce both speakers first. Let me say that. Natalie Hall is the Fulton County Commissioner of District 4, which encompasses the heart of Atlanta, downtown, Midtown, Old Fourth Ward, Collier Heights, Legacy neighborhoods northwest of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium to Fulton Industrial Boulevard and southwest of I-20 to Campbellton Road. The unique attribute about this district is that it is completely inside Atlanta. Our second speaker is going to be Mr. Thomas W. Dortch. Mr. Dortch is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of TWD Incorporated. He has such a long history that I choose not to read all of it to you. But I will say that he is the current Vice Chair of Public Policy for the Atlanta Business League. He is the only three-term chairman of the board of the Atlanta Business League. And just has, as I said, a wealth of knowledge and history in the city. But today he will talk mostly about business and share information with you that he has gleaned throughout this COVID situation. Two things I want you to know. In the chat room, there is a resource guide. That resource guide will share information, provide information to you that you can utilize after today's session. If you have a question, place it in Q&A. Place all of your questions in Q&A. If you want to talk to each other, that's in the chat room. The resource guide is also in the chat room. And the topic today, affecting constructive change in today's economic and political climate. We'll begin now with the Honorable Commissioner Natalie Hall. She'll be dialing back in a second, I do believe.
All right, you know, somebody had actually shut off my video and my sound. I had to request to come back on.
Okay, well, there you are.
That. But as you can see, I'm inside of a car, but this shows you how mobile Zoom allows you to be. I would not miss this meeting for the world to share information with everyone in the small business and just regular business community about COVID-19 and the impacts and the resources. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much, LEONA, for inviting me to participate. This is a very important situation and important information to share. First, I want to start off with the fact that, you know, the Fulton County Board of Commissioners did allocate $10 million, which I want to stop right there and say it's a lot of money, but it's still not enough to actually do what we need to do in the business community. I think that we need a lot more, but we did allocate $10 million and gave the county manager the authority to provide these resources to nonprofit organizations and small businesses. $8.5 million of those resources went to nonprofit organizations and 1.5 went to small businesses to help them through COVID-19. The question that I asked when the resolution was presented at our televised Board of Commissioners meeting was, does the 1.5 apply to all small businesses in Fulton County? And I was told, not inside of the city of Atlanta. Well, you could imagine how disheartened I was to hear that, because my entire district is the city of Atlanta. And like you said earlier at the beginning of this, that's what makes it so unique. So I was disheartened by that, but I was happy to find out that the Development Authority of Fulton County came through and passed their own resolution to allocate an additional $1.5 million to small businesses. And that 1.5 included those businesses inside of the city of Atlanta and other municipalities. So that was good. But since then, we have actually received $104 million from the federal government. We initially only requested 50 because we knew we had some additional things that we needed to do as far as our employees and cleaning our buildings and trying to make everything safe so that our employees who are on the front line that are still working, they needed hazardous pay. You had people who work in the jail that, you know, encounter the inmates and people coming in and out who are being arrested. And we even had a slight COVID-19 outbreak in the jail. So we needed to put things in place for cleaning and supporting our employees. But we, in addition, need to support our citizens and our communities in Fulton County. So I am asking the county manager to look at this $104 million and find out how much can we use, not only to help our smaller municipalities, because they were not able to get any federal funding. If you were a municipality that had a population of less than 500,000, you could not apply for the federal dollars. So City of Atlanta just barely made it, and they were awarded about $84 million themselves. These other municipalities like College Park and East Point and City of South Fulton even, they are not able to get those funds. They were told to go through the state. And we know that the state only has so much funding to give out across the state of Georgia. So I'm giving the county manager the charge to do that, as well as we need the personal protective equipment, the masks, the gloves, the hand sanitizers, and everything to give out to our constituents. We are charged at the county to serve our most vulnerable populations. And these are the people who cannot afford to buy masks and gloves and hand sanitizer. So I'm asking, along with my colleagues, Commissioner Joe Karn and Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr., that the county allocates some of that $104 million to purchase the PPEs so that we can hand these things out to our residents and our constituents across Fulton County. We did have a resolution that went forward. Commissioner Liz Hausman and I sponsored it, and it just did not pass. You know, some of our colleagues on the commission I guess they just didn't see the importance of it, but that's not going to stop us. We're still moving forward to try to ensure that the residents are protected during COVID-19. I also want to share with you some additional information about how COVID-19 is affecting businesses, because this is the kind of information that doesn't seem to be talked about very much. Businesses are being impacted by absenteeism. Their workers are absent either from being sick. You know, they're saying that even if you have just a normal cough, you still need to quarantine yourself because you may have the COVID-19 virus or may not. And the tests, we just started getting enough tests now where people can go and get tested. even if they don't have any major symptoms. So that's a plus. There have been changes in the patterns of commerce around the nation. Consumer demands for the infectious prevention items has increased. Food has increased. If you go to the stores right now, you'll see that a lot of the stores have empty shelves when it comes to bleach. I was looking for bleach for about 2 weeks. Toilet paper ran out in a lot of places. I mean, there's a lot. So we need to help each other with supply and demand and for the resources. Shipments are slow in every aspect of business. Shipments are slow, but we need to put into place prevention measures. And, you know, Fulton County has the Board of Health that has health centers all over Fulton County, and they are free to our Fulton County residents. So I've had plenty of calls from people about just going in to get checked when they're feeling sick and want to know if they don't have COVID, can they still get health services? And our health centers are open. We did not close them down. We closed some of the other non-essential buildings like our senior centers, our libraries, and buildings like that. So employers need to protect their workers. I know a lot of businesses have reopened due to the governor actually reopening and releasing the shelter-in-place order, but you still have to promote frequent hand washing, including providing workers and customers and worksite visitors with a place to wash their hands. And if soap and running water are not immediately available, provide alcohol-based hand rub for rubbing the hands. It needs to have at least 60% alcohol. And Fulton County Board of Health also says promote wellness checks when and where appropriate. Temperature checks are a must. You need to check everyone's temperature. I know we have a plan in place for reopening in June, the Fulton County Government Center and some of our other facilities. And 2 major things that we're doing is we're allowing every single employee to be tested for COVID-19 for free. And we are
It appears that the commissioner's sound has stopped. Bear with us for a few moments. It looks like we may be having technical difficulties. Okay, it looks like we are having technical difficulties. So I am going to see if we can bring Mr. Dortch in. Mr. Dortch, are you there? We had some technical difficulties with Commissioner Hall, so we will let her complete her thoughts when she comes back. But if you would, please go ahead and join in and speak.
Thank you, Leona. It's my pleasure to join all of the Atlanta Business League family and to spend time today talking to my colleagues and talking to the audience about, again, a little bit more about the challenges we're facing from COVID-19, particularly the impact it's having on our small business community. And I think the other important thing that we have to sound the alarm is that we've got to be just as vigilant and just as concerned about what happens when this pandemic at least dies down or when it's gone. From all of the experts, I'm hearing that we may have this for some time. So it's not like this, you can wave a magic wand and it's going to be gone immediately. And so it's important that we are all focused in the now and in the future, because we're probably going to lose more of our African-American and minority-owned businesses from this COVID-19 than what we lost in the last recession or the last two recessions, because this is something that none of us ever expected to see in our lifetime. And because this nation was not prepared, we are now getting the brunt of it. And what we have to understand is because in our African-American community, because of preconditions, and folks, first of all, what got us to our preconditions again has been the lack of access to quality health care and poverty that has not been addressed by our governments and by our communities in enough time. And so because of hypertension, because of diabetes, because of obesity, we're disproportionately impacted. So I wanted to say that first. There are all kinds of conspiracy theories out there about what's going on and why doesn't the president wear a mask and why doesn't the vice president wear a mask, and is there already some kind of treatment for this disease? So I'm not going to deal with any of that. You know, everybody will come to their own conclusion, but the important thing is this is now. And so for us in business, one, we've got to be just as active as business owners saying to our community, you need to shelter in place. I was really hurt last weekend when I saw, well, the weekend before, almost hundreds of our people at the Greenbrier Mall lined up to buy the release of these new Jordan shoes, $150, $200 a pair, lined up knowing we need to be putting food on our tables, paying our bills, and providing for our families. The Jordans will be there later. But I can imagine how many of us got basically from that, those who were there, who may have been impacted or may have been exposed to the virus. And our young brothers and sisters in the West End Mall, this thing is serious. And so to the business side of it, when the PPPs came out and Congress passed the legislation, and that's the Paycheck Protection Program, it said that the $351 billion were to be made available to help small businesses in these times of challenge, to make sure that we could continue to keep our employees paid and on the job, to make sure that we could pay our bills, whether it was rent, our notes, or whether it was utilities. It was supposed to help all businesses. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, almost 283 billion and maybe a little bit more went to, quote, small as they defined them, publicly traded companies, almost 283 to 290 billion of that. In addition to that, the rest of the money that was left went to other firms. It did not really come to us. And so we got, the number I understand is that we got less than 10%, way less than 10% of that. So that was the first round. But the Paycheck Protection Program was supposed to help us. And when I say us, small businesses. Fortunately for me and a small number of us, we were able to get in. I went to a black bank. I went to Unity National Bank, even though I was called by Bank of America. I was called by BB&T to put my application in. You know, again, as we have tried in the Atlanta Business League, we have to support our own businesses. So I went to Unity National Bank. The 100 Black Men of America went to Citizens Trust Bank. My church, where I chair the board, again, in Newburgh, we went to Citizens Trust Bank, and all three of our black banks came through. Mm-hmm. And this time around, when there was additional funding, and we hope our businesses are getting in line for these, and I really urge you to go to our black banks, because unfortunately, those major banks said, if you did not already have a banking relationship with them, even though the legislation said you can go to banks and get your loan, which I'll talk about how that loan becomes a grant to get your loan, but the banks, through their discretion, decided they were going to only deal with their existing customers. And we know with the small businesses and with our mom and pops and our African-American owned businesses, we have not had ongoing major banking relationships with the larger banks. And so even our numbers we put in may have been smaller. And so what we've been doing, I've been on all these White House calls, you've been on with me, and several folks around the country from our community has been on with the White House and with these others trying to make a case. Mm-hmm. We've been on the phone, we've been pushing, we've been on with Congress, And so Congress came out with the second round of the PPP. They did say that they were setting aside a small portion. Small is still large compared to what we're getting in our black banks, somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 30 billion. I don't have the numbers in front of me, that could be let through our black banks. And we have to understand, at one point we had over 85 black banks about a decade ago. We're down to less than 25 today. And so what we have to do is, one, and the ABL is there to help, and all of us are trying to help any business. It's a 2-page application, but we need to make sure you have your financial documents, because let me tell you why the PPP, if administered properly, could be a great program. Because if you use the money to pay your employees, if you use the loan to pay for your operational costs, that's up to 25%, that must be declared in the loan package, then this can really help us through the tough times. But let me tell you, it's a double-edged sword. If you get a PPP, again, Paycheck Protection Program grant loan, and if you do not use those dollars for what they're designated for, they become, again, a loan and won't be converted to a grant. The problem we have is that when SBA came out with their regulations, they came out with regulations for protecting the employees, but did not provide for providing for the support for your lease note and for your operational costs. So some people may get the loan and still gonna have a deeper hole, because if the money didn't help you then, you're still stuck with those expenses. So what we have to do first as an organization is keep working. And I must say, again, Brother Bell has been aggressively moving around. I want to give him his props, because he's been trying to come in our communities and on all of these calls talking about what the SBA loan is about. But the PPP loan through SBA is about. But Leona, what we've got to do first is help our folks get their act together. We've been saying at ABL and through our webinars and seminars we were doing before, is making sure our businesses understand your books have got to be in order. That never before have we had this kind of money out where you don't have to sign, guarantee the note. You get a loan that can be converted to a grant if you use it according to how you designate in your loan. So that's the important part. So what we want to do now, almost 60% of the new appropriation, which is almost $456 billion additional dollars, 6% of that is already gone. And so we still have to work to try and get our people in the door, to help them in any way so we can provide technical support and technical assistance to them. It should not be the larger of our Black businesses who can get loans, and our medium-sized, small size, and developing businesses should not be left out. So I wanted to say on that end, we've got to work harder. We've got to stay on the phone to our banks here, that we're lucky here in Atlanta to have National Unity Bank and Citizens Trust Bank. In Savannah, we have Carver State Bank. So we want to work on doing that. And I want to commend you and what we're doing with the league to provide information. And I encourage folks, call ABL, use us as a resource so we can get you to the right place to get the people to work with you. And then the other side of that is that we have a coalition of support. We're working with all organizations. And for those on this call need to understand, ABL is not trying to be the only sheriff in town. We're not trying to be the biggest and the baddest. We're trying to work as part of a family with Urban League and with Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council and all of these groups working together to make sure we help to deliver the support. But now the other thing, Leona, we have to understand, while we're seeing these challenges now, we need to be planning for the future. Because our businesses, we're gonna probably lose more businesses. We're gonna lose more of our Black middle class folks who we've depended on to help invest for all of those who have been, who are again among our neediest folks. And so we've got to work on how do we make sure that our people are getting the support that they need. And so what I want to do from that is first call on all of our businesses. in the last 3 weeks, I've hired an additional 43 employees. And the reason for that is while I got my PPP for my transportation company, because we run part of Modern Mobility. And one of the commitments I made, and I challenged the rest of my colleagues, my employees have been committed to me over the years. This is my 25th year in business. There was no way I was going to lay off anybody working for me, because families need us now more than ever. And some of us can do more today because of these challenges. And so I have not taken a salary. I'm not going to take a salary because, again, I'm blessed today because of my employees. And so I encourage our business owners who have the ability, don't forsake your employees. In addition to that, for those employees, if a business has been partially, again, has partially stopped its operation or totally, then the company can file with the Labor Department for supplemental unemployment benefits for their employees. So again, for our companies that have been partially, the operations partially stopped, or if they're totally stopped at this point, then they can file and their employees can get, again, a supplemental employee unemployment benefit from from the Department of Labor. So I encourage us to make sure we have to take care of our employees, take care of our families. The other thing that I encourage, and I'm calling on my other colleagues in business that are able to still operate and who have resources. Our communities need food. And we got to make sure, because at the end of this month, Atlanta Public School System will not be providing meals to those young inner city youth who've depended on our school system for meals, and those in the metro area. So one, we have to make sure we're investing money into those communities. I'm doing that, and I encourage others, and I know others are doing that. In addition to that, we have to make sure that we're buying masks. I want to commend Commissioner Hall. Natalie Hall has been on the forefront battling all of this stuff when some of our other colleagues don't understand that, yes, in North Fulton, communities may have more money, as one of the commissioners has said, that they can afford to pay in North Fulton, but the majority of our poverty pockets are in Atlanta and in the southern side of Fulton County. And we have to make sure that people understand, if you're a Fulton County commissioner, you're not Fulton County commissioner for North Fulton, it's for all of Fulton County. So one, when Natalie and Joe Kahn and Marvin Arrington asked the commission to at least set aside $1 million of $106 million to buy masks to distribute to our communities, they refused. And so people need to get on the phone. We're buying and distributing masks. My chapters, I have 18 chapters with 100 in Georgia. I'm the national chair. My chapters are buying masks and distributing. They're providing food. So other organizations I know are doing it. We got to do more. This past Sunday on Mother's Day, New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, which I chair their board, gave more tests to our Black community than any other tests have been given in the state of Georgia. So what I'm saying is our coalitions have to be creative. Our businesses have to step up. It's painful, but we have to make it painless, or at least painful, for our people. So I wanted to put those things on the table. I'll answer any questions, but we need to understand this pandemic is here, Leona. We have got to work, and we've got to make sure our people, our senior citizens, are being impacted disproportionately because of their age and all. And we're seeing the spread of this pandemic into our senior citizens' home. But people should understand it's not over. In Georgia, we're still increasing. From this past Mother's Day to the week before, we had over 2,000 additional cases of infections in Georgia. And they're talking about opening up restaurants. And I feel for my brothers and sisters at all restaurateurs. We know you need to get to business, right, but you got to shelter in place, because if we don't shelter in place, if we don't stop the spread, this is going to go through the fall, through the winter, and into next year. So I wanted to say those, but encourage all of us. We have to do more. As the saying goes, we're in this together. We are truly all in this together. I've been locked in at home. I've been under house arrest for 7 weeks. I'll go out with my mask to the supermarket and straight back home. I go out to the drugstore and straight back home. And I go to my office, pick up my mail, which all of my businesses, except for my transportation company, has been closed. So I go in, get my mail, and get out. Folks, this is serious. Leona, I commend ABL for this. But no matter what we say or do, this too shall pass.
Yes.
We've had these pandemics before. This is the worst of what we've seen. But if you look at it, it's spreading across the world. And my last point is really to look at this last approach. If you think about our firefighters fighting a fire in the forest, they do clearings between where the fire is and where the forest has not been infected by a fire. So they do these clearings so the fire cannot spread over to the part of the forest that has not been impacted. We have to look at this pandemic the same way. If we can shelter in place and those who've been infected can run the gamut of those 2 weeks or so and not spread it to other communities, then we can stop the spread now. And don't believe this thing just started in January. This pandemic, we understand from early reports, has been here as early as November of last year. And those people who died in December, people called it everything else, but didn't call it the corona virus. And if you look at how it spread it in Albany, Georgia, there was a funeral. 117 people got the virus at one funeral. From that funeral, they went to church, they went to gatherings, and at one point, Albany was the hot spot in Georgia. They got some control of it. You look at Gainesville, Georgia, up in Hall County, it's a hot spot. And if you look at the spread at Atlanta, Fulton County, DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett, right here in our metro area, this is where the majority of these cases are. We live in these cases. So again, I want to say to the commissioners, I know you got some tough choices to make. For all of our commissions, this is not about Republicans or Democrats, hidden Republicans. This is about us understanding that our elected bodies are for the people, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so it's not about North Fulton or South Fulton or downtown Atlanta. This is about our county. This is about DeKalb. And so if nothing else, businesses have got to be just as active, just as we're just as active about that madness in Brunswick. We cannot stop working because you still got people getting infected by HIV and AIDS. We still got people who have hypertension. We still have diabetes. So folks, don't live in fear. Let's get it together and work together.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for that presentation. Commissioner Hall is back now. We need to unmute her, unmute Commissioner Hall so that we can hear from her. Can you unmute your phone? Okay.
There we go.
Okay, there you are. Okay, why don't you take another 5 minutes and complete your presentation, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Okay, so sorry about that. Apparently I lost my signal and it just froze. Everybody who's watching, some of my team texted me and said, you froze, we can't hear you. So I was just in the midst of going into how to prepare to implement basic infection prevention measures in business. And this is information that was provided by Fulton County's Board of Health to help businesses through this COVID-19 situation. And I got to the part where I was talking about taking the temperature of the employees. You need to do that. And you need to also do social distancing, which they're saying is 6 feet apart. And of course, wear your protective gear, your mask, your gloves, and have hand sanitizer. But most of all, if you can continue to shelter in place, that will help us reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus. And I think that we have been sheltering in place long enough for a lot of employers to see that they do have a number of positions within their organizations that can realistically telework and still remain productive. And so if you can continue that, it will help greatly in the reduction of the spread of COVID-19. And right now we're trying to do contact tracking to see where the COVID virus is moving within Fulton County and Atlanta. And that's going to help us reduce the spread as well. So, if you need COVID-19 protective equipment, please contact me in my office. You can always email my office at natalie.hall@fultoncountyga.gov. You can call my office. Even though the Fulton County Government Center is closed right now to the public, we still receive our phone calls. Those phone calls, if you leave a voicemail, will literally turn into an email and email me and my team. And we are still working. My entire team and I have been out delivering care packages to our seniors because they don't have the ability to get around like they should, and they should really stay in because they are the most vulnerable population. So we're delivering food, we're delivering essential items, and as much as I can buy and give out to my District 4 constituents, I am doing. So please feel free to contact my office for any information. And we never turn away a constituent. Even if you don't live in District 4, we're going to help you, and we will make sure you connect with the commissioner who represents your area. So do not feel that you cannot contact my office, even if you do not live in District 4. In conclusion, I just want to say that I will continue to fight for Fulton County to provide the personal protective equipment, and to purchase more of it, to set some aside for our most vulnerable populations. And I'm always looking for partners who want to help in the community. So please contact me if there's anything that I can do to help any small business. If you need information, we will make sure you get that information.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hall. We have a few questions that we'd like to ask, and I think we're waiting for the questions to be entered into the Q&A. But while we're doing that, how do you suggest that our members and constituents lobby to ask questions, to find out, how they can benefit from business opportunities? How can they ask more questions about the $104 million, as I've mentioned, or you mentioned earlier, and as I've read, to my knowledge, I'm only aware of the $10 million that has been announced as a strategy for COVID-19. So what do you suggest?
Well, I suggest that, number one, let me say this. I always try to tell people that as a voter, you have tremendous power. So contact your elected official. You can email them. If you want to contact the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, go to fultoncountyga.gov. That is the website. You will find all of the commissioners' contact information there. Email them, call them. You can get on their social media and contact them that way too. Make comments on posts. You have the power as the voter, and we need for you, we have to hear from you. We need to hear from you. Also, I work for the city of Atlanta, and I've worked for the county, and I have to say the city has a very good attendee list of people that come consistently to their council chambers, to their meetings. Fulton County does not have that. We broke a record when 4 commissioners voted to relinquish Fulton County's entitlement status, community entitlement status, and to give back millions of HUD funding dollars. When I did an outcry to the community and a call for action, and Mr. Dortch, he played a significant role in helping with that. When we had the most people show up to our Board of Commissioners meeting in the history of Fulton County. I was told that we had over 200 people come and speak, and that was the largest group ever. But we need you to be consistent and attend those meetings. It's easier now than ever while we are Zooming, because you can actually just jump on by audio or by video, and you can comment and everything. We need that input from you, because some people think you're not watching and you're not paying attention. And while they think that, then they start to do things that you may not agree with. So you need to be aware of what's going on. The Board of Commissioners meetings are held on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month, and they start at 10 o'clock. Public comment is within that first, I would say, 15 minutes. But you need to be there, even if it's online, early so that you can speak. We've had quite a few people jump on now that they've gotten used to Zoom, and they have spoken and spoke up about the PPEs and everything. So please, we have another one coming up next Wednesday, 10 o'clock, jump on it. And if you ever need any assistance with reaching anyone at the county, like I said, you can always go through my office. And I also have a separate website, Fulton County GA, the number 4.com. And that website, I try to keep it up to date with everything that's available to constituents and everything that's going on in District 4.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure to get that information, the websites that you gave, the numbers that you gave we'll put that into the chat room so that everyone will have access to that. Tommy, would you
Yes.
comment more about the supplemental unemployment income or that process? Talk about that process. Right.
Yes. The supplemental unemployment benefits that is provided in each state now, and Georgia's there. If you go to the Georgia Department of Labor website, you'll find a complete layout, because now you can't go into the office, so you can go online, you can pull the information up and look for supplemental unemployment benefits. You'll find the category there, and it tells you, under the provision, how you, for example, if your employees are working part-time now, and as opposed to being able to work full-time, then they can get supplemental unemployment benefits, because now their income has been reduced. The company, again, is either, as I stated earlier, the company has to either be partially shut down or partially or significantly reduced in its services, or totally closed. And under that provision, the employer can file for the employee for them to get the supplemental benefits. And then the Department of Labor will review the circumstance. But now I simply say to companies, if you're operating business as usual, if you don't have a partial shutdown, or if you're not shut down, don't get caught in the quagmire of them coming and say that you committed fraud. But we do know a lot of companies have significantly been reduced. In my consulting firms, one of my firms from the governmental sector is still doing well, but from my private sector side, that has changed. Even though my clients, some, because I represent them in government, they're robust. But for those in the private sector side, all of them are hurting too. So be careful, but go to the Georgia Department of Labor.gov, and you will see supplemental unemployment benefits. And so every company should help their employees, and the company can file for the employees for them to get the supplemental, because the company verifies or certifies that it has had a significant reduction in service. But it is available for companies to help their employees.
Thank you so much for that. There is another question that several individuals have asked, and I know the answer, but I'll ask you to respond. There are a number of companies that requested or applied for the economic disaster advance. Initially, they had $1 amount out there, but it changed. What do you recommend that they do as it relates to finding out the status of their request?
I would call SBA, and SBA. You can go online with SBA for, I think that was up to $10,000 that was available under that disaster. Now, if you're filing for the PPP, then the disaster may not be available for you. It will not be available for you. But if you file and you don't have a response, there's a SBA hotline. It's sba.gov. What I will do, if they will get you information, Leona, I'll make sure that we get to the appropriate people at SBA so we can help to at least get them from their helpline to get them some help to assist. So if they'll do that, we'll do it one or two ways, but they can go online and there's a hotline at SBA they can fill out. They can go, we'll get it to Ashley Bell. We'll contact Ashley on their behalf and have him assign somebody to work with those businesses as well.
Thank you. Is Commissioner Hall back, or did we lose her again? We may have lost, there she is. Commissioner Hall, you mentioned free testing. Where can our members and all those who've joined us on the call find that list of clinics that they can go to get free testing?
They can absolutely go to fultoncountyga.gov, or they can go to my District 4 website at fultoncountyga4.com. We just added a new site in District 4 today, and so they said they're going to be sending that location over. I will also make sure that as quickly as possible before we get off this call, I will try to put it in the chat, because I see that there's information actually being shared in the chat on this Zoom call.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions before we let Mr. Thomas Dortch or Commissioner Natalie Hall leave us? They're a wealth of information, I have to say that, so we definitely don't want to let them go if our audience still has additional questions.
Leona, while you're waiting for additional questions, I really want to make sure on record that I commend Commissioner Natalie Hall. She has been in the trenches. She has been in so many meetings and now on calls, really trying to make sure she's not just representing District 4. She's representing all of Fulton County, even with her effort with Joe Karn and with Marvin Arrington to get $1 million out of this 104 or 106 million to buy masks for everybody in Fulton County. It wasn't just for her district. It wasn't just for inner city Atlanta. It was for all of our county. And we got to have commissioners like that. We have 6 commissioners that have districts, and then you have Chairman Rob Pitts, who's supposed to represent all of the county. And unfortunately, the haves get richer or get better, and the have-nots don't. But Fulton County is one county. And when you look at the spread of COVID-19 in Fulton County, I really encourage all commissioners to follow the lead of what Natalie is doing and what Joe is doing and what Marvin is doing. They're everywhere. As a matter of fact, Marvin has a health center in his district. And I'm just really so proud of Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Karn working to make sure in his district, he's going to have a facility for people to go to, but they work together. And to be honest, all of our commissioners need to work together. And so we need to make sure our voices are heard. This is an election year. And if you're silent now, then you're going to have to wait 4 years for those who are not providing the support for all of our citizens. So I want to, again, go on record and saying thank you for that. And we have to make sure we have governmental leaders who are responsive. And I cannot say enough about how Joe Karn, Marvin Arrington, and Natalie Hall have worked for the people of Fulton County, work for their districts, and who are responsible and responsive, because that's got to happen if you got people in public office. They've got to be public servants. So I wanted to say that and say to you, thank you. One of my greatest accomplishments, Leona, from being a 3-time chair of ABL was, I brag about it, I'm proud of it, was I had the great pleasure of hiring you as the CEO in my first term, and you have been phenomenal. You have not let us down. You are a phenomenal leader, and I want to thank you for all that you do, and thank our board and our board chair for the commitment to keep working for businesses in our city and Metro Atlanta.
Thank you so much, Tommy. I appreciate that. Let me ask Samantha before we I'll have a few announcements. Samantha, do we have any other questions in the Q&A room?
We do. We have two.
Thank you. Go ahead and ask those.
This question is for the commissioner. Is there antibody testing?
The COVID-19 tests are the regular tests that have been offered, but these tests are actually faster. You know, the older ones that they originally were using, it took up to 48, like 4 days or 5 days for you to get the results back. Now these tests can actually get you a result much quicker, generally within 24 hours. If they test antibodies, I don't know. I just know that they're COVID-19 virus tests.
Wonderful. All right, Mr. Dortch, this is a question for you. Can you clarify? So you're offering to help contact the SBA to push along the applications for those who applied for the 10K advance from the EIDL. How do people reach you, and how can we get that process started for them?
Let me suggest that your questions or info go into the Atlanta Business League office, and LEONA will make sure I get all of that, because what we will do is package that, and then we will get with Ashley Bell, who's the regional administrator of SBA, and get with him or get with the district director of SBA, who's right here in Peachtree Center. And we will get someone to respond to you. So that, you know, again, I'm getting about 300 emails a day, and it's kind of tough, and my executive assistant, Brenda, might quit on me, even though I'm paying her. So if you will send to LEONA, to ABL, and LEONA will tell you where to send those inquiries, and then we will make sure we get you to the right desk, and we will get a response from SBA to assist expeditiously.
Thank you. And that email address, Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong, it's abl@atlantabusinessleague.org.
That is correct, yes.
abl@atlantabusinessleague.org. Okay.
Another question here. For the second round of the stimulus, what is the procedure for the request? Also, do you need a qualifier for this?
For the second round of the stimulus, it's same approach. You have to go to a bank, and when you go to the bank, the application is basically a 2-page application. It will ask you for your financials. You have to show that over the your payroll that you have had, and I think it may start back as early as January. But you still have to show your payroll that you're paying for your employees. You get to multiply that by 2.5. So if your payroll for 2 months, let's just say it came up to 200,000, let's just say 100,000. You multiply 2.5 times 100,000, and that gives you the max of how much you can apply for. Now, you don't have to sign over any collateral. And again, it starts as a loan, but it can become a grant if you, over the 2-month period from the day that you get your loan, the day that the money is deposited into the bank account, you have 2 months to use those funds under the PPP program. And so the money that, if you use all of that for payroll, or if in your application, you apply for them to help you with your lease, your operational costs, and it's very restrictive, but you will see in that document, you can go on and get SBA site and get the regulations for the PPP. And LEONA, we have it in the office anyway, right? We have those regs available if someone wanted to get those from the ABL office. We can, we haven't posted on our website, we will. But again, you go to a bank. Now, if you, I highly recommend that you, whoever you're doing banking with now, go to those banks. And if they don't work with you, take your money out of those banks first. That's the first thing I'm going to suggest that you do. Mm-hmm. But I've talked to the people at George Andrews at Unity National Bank, and I called Case Lawal in Houston, who is the chairman of the board, and they are prepared to work with any business that comes in Again, you'll just have to have your financial documents to show the records that, you know, your payments and all of that, show that you own the company. They'll ask you, when was the company chartered, all of those basic information. It's not complicated. And then they will ask you whether you are currently under any kind of federal or state investigation. They will ask you if you've ever been convicted of a crime or felony. Those are basic things that they have. They will ask you if you owe Internal Revenue Service or if IRS has put a lien on your company or property. Those are basic questions they're gonna ask. And just tell you that up front. If you can answer all of those and the answer is no, you have not been sued, you're not under investigation, then it clears the way for you to get your application processed. But that's the basic thing that you're gonna need to do. And they will work with you. But George Andrews is at National Unity Bank, and Cynthia, who's Cynthia's top exec now, Leona? I don't have
Fred Daniels or Farron Logan.
Yeah, Fred Daniels at Farron Logan at Citizen Trust Bank. Those are two of our local banks that have been very active and have been very supportive. But if you bank with any of the other major banks or smaller banks, go to them. You can only apply, they suggest you only apply at one though. Don't apply at multiple banks. You need to get that one application in wherever you choose or feel most comfortable, and then work it from there. But that'll be your best bet, but don't wait any longer. You need to get that going because that last 40% is gonna be gone pretty soon. The reason why I say the black banks, there is a special consideration in this second round for black banks. Just as we're working on HBCUs and all of them to get you support. So start with them, but we gave you the names of Citizen Trust and the name at National Unity National Bank, because you don't have to have a business account. They would love for you to have one, but if you're gonna get the loan, you definitely have to have a business account you establish with them. I have personal banking relationships with both of those banks, and I brought several million to one of those banks from some of the nonprofits I've worked with.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go, I think there are a few more questions. It's 4:00 p.m. and we normally log off at that exact time, but I understand there are a few more questions that are there to be asked, and we'll go for another 10 minutes. At 4:10, I'll make closing remarks. So Samantha, are there other questions?
There are, yes. This is a question for the commissioner. If a minority firm has N95 masks for sale but are not certified with the county yet, can they still try to get business with the county?
So, let me make sure. Okay, so to do business with the county, you have to register through the Department of Purchasing and Contract Compliance. You can do that online at Fulton County's website very easily. If you go to the Purchasing and Contract Compliance page, they have it all set up. And as soon as you get a vendor number from Fulton County, you are able to start doing business with us. But I do recommend that when you're doing the selection and you're actually identifying what type of business you do, select even those things that you're not quite sure do you fall under that category, because you may still be able to get bids that you can qualify for. I know some of the categories are a little, confusing, but if you kind of feel like you fall under that category, select it anyway. You can always adjust it later on. And then I would recommend that all small businesses go through the manager of contract compliance. His name is Mario Avery. Some of you may know him because he used to be elected, but he is outstanding with helping our small businesses, especially our minority businesses, get set up. And he will also help you at other municipalities. He's very good at that. And of course, if you need any assistance with any of these things, you can always email my email address at the county, natalie.hall at fultoncountyga.gov, and I will connect you directly in via email. I love doing it that way because it gives me something in writing to actually track what's going on and to see if people are responsive to your request. And it also allows them to follow up and keep me updated on what they're doing as far as your requests are concerned. So please do that. And I just want to say, I did go to the chat and I updated you on the newest testing site location. It is in District 4. It is on Boulevard. If you know where the Atlanta Medical Center is, it's literally across the street from the Atlanta Medical Center. So that's one of our newest testing sites.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This next question, this person would like to know, can someone clarify if the PPP and IDL, are they still able to apply?
Yes, it's still open. It's open as long as the money lasts. So I would suggest you move ASAP to go ahead and get your applications in and go ahead and contact, again, either your bank that you have your banking relationship with now, or clearly contact Unity National Bank or Citizens Trust Bank here in Atlanta and work with them. There are some other banks smaller that are working a little bit more too, but definitely it's open and available. For those on the business side on these PPEs though, let me suggest you make sure you have competitive pricing, because we know those PPEs cost anywhere from 35 cents to 75 cents a piece to be made. And these investment bankers out of New York pooled money. They bought up a lot of the marketplace, and then they've been selling them for $4, $5, and $6 a piece, which in a time of need, that's gouging. But it's supply and demand. So if you've got competitive pricing, that's going to be important, because I've been in touch with Francois Shi in Hong Kong who used to live in Perry. They manufacture those and others. And so they say in the old saying in business, pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered. Don't be a hog out there trying to get everything in one fell swoop.
Mr. Dortch, can you also answer this question? How do you account for the PPP funds? What financials must be submitted?
They want to see your books. They're going to ask you for your last 2 years of your Internal Revenue Service filings. So for 18 and 19, you need to show them that you have filed with Internal Revenue Service. In the case of 19, because the federal government extended it, you can pull 17 and 18, your tax filings, and have those available to them if you didn't file early. Because again, as I said, the feds extended the filing date for 2019. So you want to have those. You want to show your payroll, if you're using a payroll service, you just have to show proof that you have been paying the payroll that you say you paid. So whether you're using a service to file them, or if you've got some kind of audited document that shows that you've been making that payroll to your employees, and it will also show up in your IRS filings. But they're looking at your payroll, I think it's back to January. So you want to be able to show and substantiate that you have a payroll that you say you've been paying your employees. So that's going to be important. And then there are affidavits where you just simply verify that you're not under investigation, you don't have felonies. That's all in the document that you will sign. And in terms of any other records, I think they wanted you to show your articles of incorporation. They're going to ask you if you are the sole owner of your business, or if you have partners. If you have partners that own at least 20% of your business, you're going to have to certify and you're going to have to do disclosure on who your other partners are. And those partners have to certify that they are not under investigation, that they don't have liens against them from the Internal Revenue Service. So it's basic stuff, but you shouldn't be afraid That's the easiest I've seen for people to get money is when you look at what they're asking now. But the key thing is just make sure your house is in order when you go in, and the banks will work with you in terms of the documents. If you don't have your articles of incorporation, you can go to the Secretary of State's office if you incorporated your business in Georgia, and you can get a copy of your articles of incorporation and to show that you are the sole owner or majority owner in the business if you're filed.
Thank you so much, Thomas W. Dortch and Commissioner Natalie Hall. There are a few takeaways that I hope that everyone has made note of. If you're still attempting to apply for the PPP dollars, that is still available. You have Citizens Trust Bank, you have Unity National Bank, and there are a few organizations that you can reach out to apply. You can still apply. Now, the economic disaster loan, I am not positive that those dollars are still available. When you go to the website right now, they are saying that if you're not in the agriculture arena, that you cannot apply. But I wanted to make sure that everyone realized that if you applied for the advance, but you did not apply for the loan, the number that you received as a confirmation for the advance is the same number that you utilize to apply for the loan if you're interested in that. There is free testing available in Fulton County. You can find that information on the website online. Commissioner Hall has already provided details in the chat room that for your takeaway. You will receive a survey after today's call, Zoom webinar. Please respond to that for us. Mr. Dortch has provided some complimentary books. We will do a drawing and identify who will win those books as a result of your responding to the survey. So please respond. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Thank you, Mr. Tommy W. Dortch. And we will see you next week. This is the ABL Weekly COVID-19 Issues and Opportunities series. Thank you for joining us.